Good afternoon, everyone. This is Group 5, and we are going to present a topic where everyone here should be familiar with or heard of, or even you are the one who has been using it for a long time, Chinglish. First of all, here is the agenda. In the following presentation, you will learn about Chinglish from different perspectives, like the history, the types, and some pros and cons of Chinglish, etc. I assume most of you are from Hong Kong, so it must be interesting to know more about this culture. So let's get started. And I am Perry. This is the introduction on Chinglish. I hope I can give you a brief idea of Chinglish, as this is only the beginning. So, what is Chinglish? Chinglish is a portmanteau, which means parts of multiple words are combined into one brand new word. In this case, the banned words will be Chinese and English. We take the full names of these two words. That's why we have this mixed language, Chinglish now. More understandably, Chinglish is generally being identified as Cantonese-influenced English. And what makes it so special that we need to make it as our presentation topics? The most amusing part of Chinglish is that it is an English-based language, but at the same time it ignores almost all the grammatical rules and sentence structure of English. It might be a fake concept, but I'm going to give you some examples of the comparison between the sentence structure of English, Cantonese, and Chinglish. The first things we have to notice is that the general sentence structure of English is created with the noun phrase and the verb phrase, as you can see in the diagram on the right side. For example, the sentence, "This place is overcrowded," is generated with the determiner this, the noun, which is place, the verb is, and the adjective overcrowded. If we translate into Cantonese, we will have the sentence of 呢度好多人. Up to now, everything is well designed, all the structure is clean and tidy. The noun phrase will be 呢度, the adjective phrase will be 好多, and the other noun phrase will be 人,呢度好多人. When we do one more step, translate it back to English from the Cantonese, but in the Chinglish way. It will be translated word by word and became, "Here have so many people." And this is a simple example of Chinglish. So why are Chinglish have so many differences that occurs when we trying to do the translation? Then we might want to know more about the emergence of Chinglish first. The reason why Chinglish will be invented, or I should say coincidentally created, is because of language diffusion, and we will talk about it through the globalization part and the cultural shifting part. So, for globalization, it is a geographical process that appears when the world is slowly becoming a global village. In this process, the spread of English is more rapid than ever. People from all around the world have a tendency of using English as their primary or secondary language. As the usage of English is increasing, it is impossible to avoid the merge of localized English and native language. This phenomenon creates its new form of language, Chinglish. The usage of transliterations on Chinglish is larger than that of crowds, so it is easier to reach the local people since they can know the basic meaning by hearing. So they can speak it too. It helps with the development of Chinglish. Secondly, the cultural shifting is important to the construct of Chinglish. We know that when cultural shifting occurs, it can cause both the destruction and the creation of the specific culture. For language, when the dominant language bends with the minority, it creates a major effect on the spread of Chinglish. Moreover, the knowledge level of Hong Kong in common is high. it enforces Hong Kong people to learn and adapt the use of English. When the popularity of English is fully developed, Chinglish is derived throughout the process, since people with lower knowledge levels will have to speak English in general, and Chinglish can help them get used to it. Thus, Chinglish is promoted in Hong Kong. For the following slide, Felix will be taking over and talk about the history of Chinglish. Thank you.
And now I'll show you the history of Chinglish. Chinglish has a long history. It's for about 400 years. It started in the 7th century when the English arrived China in 1637 for business or for trading or deporting goods in China. But however, when they arrived China, they did not know how to communicate with Chinese people as they did not know how to speak Chinese, and the Chinese people did not know how to speak English. So, after a period of time, they finally invented a language called Chinese Pidgin English. It's used as a lingua franca. What is lingua franca? It is you can simply speak as a bridge language or a common language for two people with different kinds of language to communicate each other. It provide the non-native speaker to use it to communicate with the speaker of different codes, such as Chinese and English is just two different codes, but there are no similarity. And also, it allowed the people from diverse the ethnic and linguistic group to interact each other. So this kind of language is greatly improved the difficulty in language of two different kinds of language to the people to communicate each other. As I have said before, Chinglish has around 400 years history, but however, the spread of Chinglish is quite later. It is quite later after the arrival of Chinglish. It spread to the north of China between 1839 to 1842. What happened during these years? There is a quite famous war, as you know. It is the first and the second Opium War happened during these 3 years. So uh, the the Chinglish has finally spread out from the south of China, especially Macau, Hong Kong, this place to the north of China, especially the treaty spots such as Shanghai and other places or city, which is used to deporting goods during these years after during the war and after the war. Since Chinglish is not a kind of standard English, the usage of Chinglish has been decreased in 19th century due to the appearance of the education of standard English. So nowadays you can see that our among the whole China or different Chinese places, the English level of citizen has greatly improved. That because we in the 19th century there are appearance of English of standard English, and other in the other hand, there is two main campaign has been carried out by the Chinese government during the preparation of the Olympic 2008 in Beijing and the Expo 2010 in Shanghai. What is the campaign about? These two campaign is very similar. They most likely they are going to they were going to establish hotlines for the citizen or other people to report the mistakes of signs on streets, such as you can see in the picture. There is a be careful of land signs. It is just a direct translation, but not a standard form of English. These these two campaign has greatly improved the Chinglish to a standard form of English. Perhaps you guys may have some idea why the Chinglish appeared in China, and I'll now tell you some causes. The first one is very important. It is the directly translation, such as long time no see or people want people see. This kind of famous translation has showed us the directly translation, word to word translation in Chinese, but not as a standard English in translation. The second one is about the pronunciation. It is the mother tongue. As English is not the mother tongue of Chinese people, when Chinese people speak English, they cannot speak as a foreign speaker or a native speaker, and they will also include some local accents while they are speaking. That's why they will speak English as Chinglish, because they will include they will include some local accents in their English. The third one is the wordiness. Wordiness is talking about how many unnecessary words including in the sentences. It is very different from English. Chinese sentence has a lot of explanation when they express the idea, but English can express the idea in a few words. This is also a factor to lead the Chinglish. As you may see, some Chinglish, they will translate the English in a lot of words. So this is also a factor. This is the main causes why will later Chinglish appeared in the world.
So thank you, Felix. So let me talk about the types of Chinglish. After a deep investigation, we can conclude that there are most likely three types of Chinglish. The first type is code mixing, and the second type is code borrowing, and the third one is direct translation. So let me just talk about code mixing. People in Hong Kong are mostly bilingual speaker, which means that they can speak both Cantonese and English. So they will sometimes tend to combine the elements of other language into the base language, which means they would tend to combine Cantonese, the elements of Cantonese to English, and vice versa. So what is code mixing then? Code mixing is a linguistic process that consolidates elements from a second language into a base language. So, as we can see from the example, like 佢哋仲有3日咋 and 你舒唔舒服㗎? And these two examples just demonstrate how people add some morphological markers to Cantonese from English. And this is a kind of Chinglish, and we can see the dynamic between the different kind of language. Let me just move on to the second type of Chinglish, which is called borrowing. So as I mentioned, since people in Hong Kong are mostly bilingual speaker, sounds and intonation device of the second language are acclimates to the base language. As we can see from the example for the first one, 去食肯德基啦. The 肯德基 inside is translating the sounds of English Kentucky Fried Chicken to Cantonese directly like 肯德基 and Kentucky. And for the first one, I don't go la. The la inside is a kind of auxiliary words in Cantonese which is not really exists in English. So we can see that how people build reciprocations of sounds and words between Cantonese and English here. Let me just move on to the next type of Chinglish, which is direct translation. So direct translation, which is just simply mean translate English to Cantonese by word basis. which people usually and always ignore grammatical root of English using this kind of method. So as seen from the example, the first one, you doing what are. Here you can see that the tenses, although the tenses is correct, but here is missing the modal verb, and we won't put the question word like what to the later part of English of a sentence, and there is no this kind of auxiliary words in English too. And for the second one, we can see that people are translating Cantonese to English directly, like see a film, but we don't have see a film in English. Usually, see a film is said in Cantonese is like 睇一套戲, so people tend to translate 睇 directly to see, but in English we would say watch. So these two sentences a kind of is example of direct translation we can see here. So let me just pass to Calvin to talk about conclusion.
Alright, so moving on to the pros and cons of using Chinglish. For a fascinating language with multivarious distinctiveness, in addition to the manifold good sides of it, there are however several cons of utilizing Chinglish, which will be manifested now. So for the pros, never can we overlook the ability of Chinglish as an exclusive culture of Hong Kong by virtue of the fact that it is a fun combination of English and Cantonese. So instead of functioning as a globally recognized language like English and Mandarin that's being employed in all range of occasions, including formal communication at work, Chinglish is instead a rather informal yet entertaining language in which locals often find it amusing when relating themselves to each other by conversing in Chinglish. To be ancillary to Cantonese, the essence of Chinglish in combining English and Cantonese indeed provide room for people to figure out the basic meaning of sentence in conjunction with the deeper meaning of it, if any, making it particularly effective in erecting and entertaining encompassing, as well as encouraging further interaction and conversation. So Chinglish is likewise a shortcut for people, with locals in particular, to communicate given that it ignores the structure and rules of a sentence, making it one of, if not the most handy and easiest instrumentality for locals to communicate. So moving on to the cons. One of the drawbacks of utilizing Chinglish as a communication medium refers to the difficulty that the usage of the language is constrained to people with knowledge and erudition to Cantonese and English only. So as we covered previously, Chinglish is not globally recognized and it lacks exposure to foreign countries in which foreigners could find it extremely problematic while interpreting it. Chinglish also in a way demolish and jeopardize the originality of English, since it, in the plurality of the cases, ignore or even distort the structure and root of an English sentence. Therefore, it is never a rare sight to discern people regarding Chinglish as an obstacle that hinder them from learning English, given that it is, in a sense, an embodiment of irregular English that manifests disordered sentences in which one is strongly advised to be first familiar with English before learning Chinglish. Chinglish, as mentioned, exteriorized rich elements of entertainment while multiple meanings are often included and expressed in a sentence. Accordingly, it is highly unsuitable and inappropriate to utilize Chinglish in formal occasion, which reflects the limitation of the usage of Chinglish. So as our scrutiny project on Chinglish is coming to an end, we will come to our concluding remarks of the according presentation shortly. So basically, to conclude the whole project, we learned that Chinglish is a product generated through the livelihood, the culture, and the excellence in English of local Hong Kongers. It is always impressive to discern the actuality that Chinglish is being served as a unique culture and meanwhile a communication instrumentality that enables quick yet effective communication among Hong Kong. Despite the manifold fascinating features of the language, never can we deny the fact that Chinglish imposes major negative impact on one's learning progress in English, in which locals should always prioritize English over Chinglish. So all in all, it comes to our last question by asking ourselves, should Chinglish be kept as a unique culture of Hong Kong, or should it be eliminated as it imposes major jeopardy to English learner? This is the end of our presentation. Thank you.